We begin with Trump slipping into what has become the unlikely political quicksand. As you know, you follow the news, there have been many controversies and policy problems and failures in these first 150-plus days of the Trump administration. But the political problem that clearly is the largest for him on the center right, the right, and now engulfing really his entire DOJ is the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Today, there are new reports Trump is, quote, fuming at the uproar, taking down him, his agenda, his presidency at this point. And while there are many different ways to cut up this scandal, what you can see very clearly is that this one has virtually no typical defenders of the president. One podcaster says it is Trump's biggest bipartisan scandal this year, meaning that the outrage runs from the MAGA right to the center right, where there's sometimes critiques of Trump, to Republicans who were never with Trump to begin with, to the center left, to the far left, to legal experts. The press has been all over the story, from the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, New York Times, all across TV. Demands for information coming from elected Democrats and Republicans and MAGA leaders. And now the disturbing comments from Trump. Today, while he's in Scotland, he was faced with these Epstein questions. When you are the president, the job goes with you. And even a master of PR distraction like Donald Trump has found he cannot get away from this story, even if there are credible accusations that he and people in his administration are abusing power, cooking up fake stories and fake investigations just to try to get anyone talking about something else. It's clearly not working. It's not working tonight on this broadcast, for example, because we always try to just follow the big stories and facts, not the bouncing ball distractions. But quite frankly, it's not working in general. And when you deal with someone tied to this sex trafficking scandal, the person who has faced the largest legal accountability, Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's co-conspirator, it would be baseline obvious for any responsible leader in any party to say that justice is served and she will serve out her term in prison. But Donald Trump, for whatever reason, is now unable to do that. You may have noticed this story came up last week. It's come up again tonight with these questions where, after interviewing her at the Trump DOJ and after all of this scrutiny, Donald Trump won't rule out a potential pardon or commutation for her. And Epstein victims warn that she is a convicted perjurer. Trump won't rule out the pardon. I want to show the totality of what he said, as mentioned recently, and then again today.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she cooperated?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
Mr. President, I didn't completely rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell when you landed. Is that something you would ever consider, and why?
Pardon for who?
For Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it. It's in the news about that aspect of it, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it.
That's a lot of words. I'm going to show you what the attorney says in a moment. But first, let me just say something about what we heard from the president. That's a lot of words without just saying convicted people in this Epstein saga, whether you call them perjurers or sex traffickers or co-conspirators, but people convicted for these horrific crimes, which so many people say or claim to care about, people convicted will not get out early, will not get leniency. If you've ever followed pardon stories, it is usually people who have been wrongly convicted or convicted and overcharged, so they serve many years for something small, say something nonviolent. That's typically what you cover in law and journalism about pardon stories. But it's usually very easy for a politician or a president to rule out pardons for people rightfully convicted of the most heinous crimes. He wouldn't do it last week, as I showed you. He wouldn't do it today. That is itself suspicious. That's full stop. Now here, let me show you that quote we were putting up here, because I want you to see this. Also news. Her attorney, who's still trying to appeal this case to the high court, says we're appealing to the president himself to recognize how profoundly unjust it is to scapegoat Maxwell for Epstein's crimes. And the DOJ official who interviewed her is not just some person following up on the case. Indeed, they also recently fired the prosecutor who successfully won this case. If you care about the victims, if you care about the actual underlying sex crimes, right, you've had people who've worked diligently on this case for years in the background, not on TV, not in the conspiracy theories online. They ousted that prosecutor, Ms. Comey, but they sent in Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, who's considered very loyal to him, who now is a top DOJ official, Deputy AG Todd Blanche. And they gave her limited immunity to talk even though they've already done all this. Remember, the DOJ has already completed this whole case. If there was any reason to give her immunity for special information or info on other people, they already did that when they had the pressure of her case. Democrat Dick Durbin wants the tapes and transcripts of what are these unusually out of process, sort of suspiciously timed, new Trump DOJ interviews with her. And Trump clearly did not rule out a commutation or potential pardon. I'm allowed to do that is very different than saying, of course, I won't do that. You could ask a president, take Trump out of it. Hey, are you planning to nuke Canada tomorrow? And they would say, no, why would you even ask? Or, no, I can rule that out. You could also say, well, legally, the Constitution gives the president the authority to bomb other countries. That's true, but a very strange way to respond to something that up until very recently, nobody was talking about, which is entering the Epstein case to help out an Epstein co-conspirator. That's where this has landed now today. The President of the United States suspiciously refusing to rule out helping Jeffrey Epstein's most guilty, convicted, infamous helper. MAGA's in a frenzy. And the DOJ has contradicted itself already over the years. There are many related Trump DOJ scandals that have built us up to this point. Take someone who is very close to Donald Trump, who scored a critical 2.5-hour interview with him in the October closing of the campaign, someone who has tens of millions of followers. Again, if you want to put it in TV terms, Joe Rogan has the audience of several TV channels combined. And this is what he's saying to his audience.
The whole thing was nuts. And then he's like, well, we have a film. We're going to release that film. And the film has a minute missing from it.
Yeah.
Like, do you think we're babies? Like, what is this?
The mob wants to eat, right? And they've been throwing red meat to the mob about Epstein files now for years. And now the mob is oddly bipartisan because it's got the Dems and it's got, part of the base of Trump in there.
We thought Trump was going to come in and a lot of things are going to be resolved.
Yeah.
We're going to drain the swamp. We're going to figure everything out. And when you have this one hardcore line in the sand that everybody had been talking about forever, and then they're trying to gaslight you on that.
Rogan upset about Trump lies or, quote, gaslighting. And this is why Trump is fuming and frustrated with the handling of the Fuhrer by his own team, exasperation following weeks of missteps. No clear strategy among top officials who underestimated the outrage, the Post reports, and especially the president's base, hoping the country would, quote, forget about the unreleased Epstein files and move on, end quote, has not proven an effective strategy. And so you take this all together, it is very different from many of the other substantive problems that Trump has faced. Government involves politics. We all know that. The politics on this one have exploded in Trump's face. The vows and pledges and promises to get to the bottom of this were from Trump and his allies, even though some of them, maybe some were uninformed, but some of them had to clearly know that all the key touch points of this lead back to the Trump administration. Now, as a journalist, I'm not saying what we don't know or can't confirm about some of the most sordid accusations swirling around the Epstein case. But when it comes to the suspicious in-custody death, it was in the custody of the Trump DOJ. When it comes to the secrecy around the case, the lack of releases, that was also the Trump administration, term 1 and now term 2. When it comes to the case promise that the key, quote, client list or other details would be released, Trump said it on the campaign trail, Pam Bondi reiterated it. Then they broke that vow. Then they issued a memo that was of Nixonian Watergate cover-up proportions saying there would be no more disclosures. And that couldn't hold for very long because now Trump himself is undercutting that memo from his Justice Department saying maybe they should disclose grand jury material. If you want to drain the swamp, but you are the swamp, how do you do that?